Somebody asked for a replay? Shoutcasted? Well, you came to the right guy. My name is Octavian. I'm here for episode 66 of 100 Casts. This one was sent in to me from, I believe, High Diamond Low Masters tier level. So, some of the highest reaching replays we've had on this series so far. Though we haven't gone all the way up to top 50 Challenger before. But not to belittle this one. This is still quite a high level of League of Legends, higher than anything I've been able to achieve. At least. And it looks like we're going to be having Pudding and Hook's Life starting off at the Krugs camp, since Rek'Sai will be starting at the red buff, or perhaps, no, more like the Gromp, on the red side jungle. Pardon me. Something caught in my throat there. I think I got it out. I think we're all set. Let's get going into this one, shall we, guys? Just a standard lineup from both teams along the river there. Nobody doing anything too crazy. But this is, while we have the camera here, this is something that I would like to focus on, the Zac top. I haven't seen that come out in a while. Zac has risen a bit more to prominence, mainly as a jungler, because his lane is a bit weak early on because of all the nerfs after, well, he became basically pick or ban a long time ago, back in season 3, early season 3, late season 2, somewhere around that range. Ever since then, his laning has been a little bit lackluster, mainly because of the change they made to where his bloblets fall. Makes it much more difficult for him to sustain in lane, which has been his most powerful laning tool, really. His damage is not particularly high, until he's gotten a bit of magic penetration in there. Or just some ranks. If he can get a level advantage over who he's laning against, that can be incredibly oppressive, but Maokai is going to be a difficult matchup for that to happen. And Pudding getting hooked on in the snare from the auto attack as well, forced to flash away. Exhaust has been dropped onto the Lucian here. Exhaust in turn from Lord Beta. There's the heal as well. Pudding really burning everything to keep alive in this one as Hook's Life gets burned down pretty far himself. Now we do see Impact, and I think that was Little is his name. It's very hard to tell what his name is because there's so many lines. Hook's Life tosses out the hook, but it doesn't quite take Nautilus's life, as he's going to be able to wander away. And there are a few names you may recognize in this one. If you don't recognize some of the solo queue names, such as VG Dan or Pudding, you may recognize Impact, because he has been seen in professional play, so this is quite a high-level replay. This is no funny business right now. Well, to be fair, there is sometimes funny business at the higher levels of play. Stretching Strike is chunking away this Maokai. Little doing a pretty good job of holding his own in this lane. I didn't think it would go this well early on for him, but then again, Maokai not exactly the most oppressive laning matchup in terms of damage and in terms of being able to bully someone away. He's just really good at surviving himself. And when facing off against a Zac like this, the lack of mana on the Zac is going to probably give the advantage over to him, actually. Here comes Dan. In from the jungle, the red buff is burning, flashing forward. The Cassiopeia really trying to salvage something from this, but Dionysus, with a few nice side steps and some Skittles, will take home the kill. Realizing he didn't have any other options at that point, Artex just had to flash on in there and try and save something from the situation, but wasn't able to make anything happen. Gives up the first blood in a matchup that's going to be pretty difficult to come back from. There's the Twisted Advance, Little forced to flash away. The Stretching Strike gets interrupted as Reasonable flies on in as well. These bloblets do not have much longer for the world. Even the minions are joining in on that kill. Reasonable gets the kill back for blue team, 1-1 now. As Dan roams up to the top side to hold the minions for a bit. This bottom lane is starting to go pretty rough for Pudding in Hook's Life. Lavernus Kange has been able to garner a 10 CS lead for himself, only 5 minutes into the match here. Oh, and Pudding missed that cannon. That is going to be fairly impactful, actually. When you're this far behind, missing something like that under the tower can be a pretty big deal. Hook's Life didn't pick it up either. I think they both tried to go for it at the same time, but what's done is done. There's the snare onto Pudding. Beta with a shield will tank up all of the damage back from the turret as the hook flies out and catches onto a minion. Not exactly the target he was looking for. Here comes Reasonable over the wall. Maybe blue team can salvage this pressure somewhere else on the map. Dan lands the Q, just about enough energy to follow it up as well. Reasonable gets the unburrow onto him though. Dionysus with the finish. And Artex just isn't putting out enough damage at this point. The early tier build, very popular in Cassiopeia, but does mean that right now, early on in the game, he's not really doing very much. You have to stand still for quite a while for him to be able to actually burn them down. Later on, he will scale hard. Then again, so will Akarthus. The question of who is the more dangerous come the late game, the Snake or the Ghost? Stretching Strike again onto Impact. As Little is doing his best to continue the pressure that he did gain earlier on, but that gank from Reasonable really turned this lane around, and now Impact is actually, with the level advantage, able to just walk up on Little. Arcane Smash as he walks on away. And this lane is really turned around. Impact doing a good job of holding his own until a jungler was able to show up and help him out. This game is starting to go a little bit poorly for blue team, though. Nothing irreparable, but they are behind by about 1.4k. And the way the lanes are falling now, top lane is pretty much the only one going in favor of blue. Bottom lane heavily against them. It's been a very unfortunate situation for Pudding so far. And mid lane is just starting to tilt towards the Karthus. And wherever that lane starts to tilt, as the game moves forward, if we move far enough along the clock, it will become incredibly, incredibly impactful. Speaking of impactful, there goes Impact onto Little. The Stretching Strike turnaround. He doesn't have Cell Division, though. I don't know if he really wants this fight. Here comes Danny, landed the Q, and he kicks under the tower, but Artex just flies away to safety. There's Let's Bounce, but Impact is happy to keep on taking this fight. He doesn't have very much mana, but maybe enough to flash forward for the Arcane Smash. And he picks up the kill. No passive on the Zac from the earlier gank. That fight was a little bit ill-advised. Impact continuing to snowball the advantage up in top lane. Lord Beta roaming up to the mid lane. The Roman Nautilus a little bit scary, but Reasonable did sidestep it, and now Hook's Life is taking advantage of this lack of the support. The exhaust has been dropped. Lavernes might be in some trouble. A lot of skill shots landing. He does flash away from the one that was most impactful. Had that hook landed, it would have been his death. Tanking all the Ezreal damage, while unfortunate, is much preferable to dying overall. Pudding and Hook's now going to be freezing this lane as best they can. They do have 1.5, if not 2 waves worth of minions pushing with them. So freezing will prove difficult, but they'll at least deny a few CS. Laverne did get to stick around though, and now it's in a fairly unfortunate spot for Hooks and Aaron. Ooh, speaking of Hooks, Lord Beta tosses one out, doesn't quite land into Pudding. And they might want to just hold here. Yeah, it looks like they're going to be doing some freezing of their own. This is the best possible place for the wave to be for red team right now. As you can see, Hooks and Pudding have to stand way, way back, only coming up cautiously to farm CS every now and then. As Beta has all this pressure, he's coming in, he's got the level 6, Lavernes does as well. Pudding and Hooks do not yet. The culling comes out, lots of bullets landing, flash forward, flash away from Hook's Life, but the exhaust is there. Hasn't been used yet. And Konge will get that kill. The Q landed, nearly got him down. We have the roam from Little in the top lane. Stretching Strike is doing some good damage. Nice dodge! Little predicted the Cassiopeia ult, sidestepped it. Probably his team still would have got the kill anyways, but whew, Lavernes, back off, man. No, does the sapling? Does the sapling? No, it does not. The heal is there, the dash is there. The damage still connects, but because of that heal, Impact is not going to be able to get that kill. And now Pudding. Flash down, he used it aggressively. Dan might be able to take him out here. The ult connects, and there is a Karthus. He just puts out as much damage as he can before going down. Everything going wrong for blue team in the bottom lane. Reasonable, can he clean it up? He does get Konge. But at what price? Dionysus has finished his roam down here, and Dan going in. The Unburrow not going to phase him one bit. As this is a 5-0-1. Karthus just been soaking up kills, experience, and gold from every which direction. Probably going to be completing that Rod of Ages very soon. Yeah, sitting on 1,700 gold. And the trade and damage onto this top lane turret as well going in red team's favor. Little didn't have to teleport down there. In fact, it wasn't even available, but even if he had needed it, he wouldn't have had to use it. And Dionysus didn't have to use his. This is a teleport Karthus, by the way. He has it up to just go back to lane here and catch this farm as it falls under his turret. This is looking... I mean, earlier it was looking rough for blue team, but now it's starting to look a little bit disastrous. I don't see too much of a way back into this game for them. They do have the late game scaling of Cassiopeia, but as I said, that's matched, more than matched at this point, by the Karthus. Lucian's going to have an unreasonably strong mid-game. That's the Zac ult burned at least, so Reasonable able to get some more pressure in the top lane, but this Maokai not really going to be able to carry blue team as they move forward, unless there are some severe mistakes from red. And one of the things about Karthus being this fed is that even if he does make some sort of mistakes, so long as he ends up dead near some enemies, he can still have an effect on the team fight, even if he gets taken down incredibly quickly. Cassiopeia, I really can't say the same thing. So moving forward, this is going to be a rough one for blue, but I don't want to count them out of it yet. Pudding is scaling up that mana immune. Perhaps with that power spike, they may be able to make some use of it. And we haven't seen any dragons go down or any turrets. It's only been kill pressure so far. No map objectives gone down. Perhaps some good rotations or simply good counter rotations could keep blue team in this one long enough so that red makes some sort of mistake. Maybe this is the mistake they're looking for, actually. Lord Beta turning around with the depth charge, but here comes a Rek'Sai out of the bushes. The Unburrow is going to land as well. Pudding gets a kill. The exhaust has been dropped on the Laverne, so there's no turnaround potential. And that'll be a 1-for-0 trade for blue team. Better than a lot of the things that have been going on so far. And Pudding is exactly where they need that gold. They need this Ezreal to scale up and hit that mid-game power spike so they can be a player on the map as they move into the next phase of the game. Ezreal going to be the most important, I think, to keep an eye on for blue team here, because, as I said, the Cassiopeia is just going to scale evenly with the Karthus, if not worse. And speaking of the Ezreal, Pudding going so very low, the Ardent Blaze doesn't quite take him down, but there's a Karthus on the enemy team! Dionysus is dominating. You have to consider that. I mean, I don't know of any really counterplay that Pudding could have put in there. He did have the heal up, unless it just came up, unless it literally came up in the last 2 seconds, in which case that's just really unfortunate for the guy. I don't know if it would have been enough, though. The Rod of Ages is completed, and there's a blasting one on top of it. Even through the heal, Karthus might have been able to get the kill. Here comes Reasonable. He knew that Impact would want to go for this fight, and he was waiting in the wings to make sure he'd have the backup he needed. But this does mean that all of this pressure top lane, all of these continued ganks from Reasonable, means that red team is just crushing down in the other 2/3 of the map. And honestly, I don't know if I can fault the guy for it, because we did see him come down bot once, and that worked out quite well, but only because of a misstep by Nautilus, not really because of a incredibly well-placed or timed gank by Reasonable. Oh. Pudding getting pulled in by the Lantern. The hook flies out, but is way wide to the right. And here comes Beta over the wall. The exhaust is there. Pudding going to be going so very low as he has no way out of this one. Dan showing up along with Beta. Laverne's baiting in blue team's bottom lane to yet another unfortunate trade. Culling used just to push up a bit faster as Dionysus might be in some trouble, but I don't know if Reasonable and Artex can actually take this fight. Dionysus flashes away. Trades back as much damage as he takes. And meanwhile, red team is stealing away the jungle. Here comes the Ezreal ult to try and halt the push. And actually, Impact rushing in with the Righteous Glory, looking for the kill into Laverne's. Is the slow there? Can he catch up in time? Dan is here, as is Beta. The Nautilus and Lee Sin might be enough to save Laverne's. No! Reasonable is there to finish off the kill with the Unburrow. The hook lands onto Dionysus, but he's going to be doing tons of damage. Even if they focus him down, he does get shut down. That's a lot of gold to Pudding. Can Impact escape here? The slow is there, but he just about is out of range. And that shutdown onto Pudding is going to be very, very impactful. They lost global pressure. They gave up the dragon and they traded evenly in turrets. But they did get shutdown gold onto the Ezreal, and that is so, so important. He's finished off a Sheen. He might be moving on into that Triforce next. Well, obviously into the Triforce, but I'm just wondering when he's going to be putting boots into the build. Oh no, Artex! Trying to go for a cheeky little catch there, doesn't quite land the ulti, and here's Little once again, the focus of Reasonable's attention. Really trying to keep this lead on Impact. The one place that they have good pressure on the map, Blue Team is trying to just solidify that pressure, keep making use of the lead they have. Oh, nice hook onto Dan. Is it going to be followed up? Hook's Life doesn't quite land the box. Here comes Beta from the side, and by this time, Red Team has been able to call in some reinforcements. Is it going to be enough? Dionysus down to half health as Lord Beta is getting burned away by this Cassiopeia. Meanwhile, the 1v1 bottom lane, Laverne's Konge is going to win that. Not too surprising at this point. Seeing as the Ezreal is fairly far behind, Dionysus gets chased down in the end, but he gets a kill back even post-death. It seems like every victory for Blue Team is a very, very Pyrrhic one. They're having difficulty pulling anything out without giving back a huge amount of resources in return. Artex, I don't know if you really want to go for this. Beta's around the corner, but maybe Impact is waiting in the bush. He was a bait the whole time, using the snake as bait, but Hook's Life missed the hook, and it cost Cassiopeia her life. Dan now going in onto Impact, gets the double kill, and Hook's Life with no more backup and nowhere left to run will just prove triple kill fodder for the heavily AD Lee Sin. Well, moderately heavily. He's gone with the Warrior Enchantment, and now he's building into some tankiness with the Sightstone as well. Double Sightstone for Red Team. Does mean they have absurdly good vision control potential, and they've been making use of it. Blue Team hard-pressed to keep vision up, even in their own jungle, which is an unfortunate thing for a Rek'Sai. Mid lane turret gonna be falling. 2-1 now on the board in favor of Red. As Little's playing the front man for his team. Here comes Reasonable to the back line, but they don't have any backup other than Pudding, and I don't think that's gonna be enough. Dan is unstoppable. 5-0 and 7. I was thinking of the wrong KDA there. 5-0 and 7 Lee Sin. Really, really solid Lee Sin play so far. Triste going to be knocked up in the air. Cassiopeia only really stunning up Beta. He does just about get out with his life, but Little is zoning off Hook's Life. Impact will go down, and that is where a lot of their gold is stored. Hook's Life lands a hook onto Little. He'll be popped. Actually, no, he didn't have the passive up, so he'll just be taken down entirely. But Dan was able to dive back onto the Cassiopeia and get his 6th kill of the game, which translates into even more global pressure for Red Team. Pudding, the crits are there, Laverne's! Nearly gets the kill. Pudding is forced to use everything he has just to run away, and the ult doesn't quite land its mark. They are back up against the wall right now. There are not very many options for Blue Team. And, well, I don't see much of a path back into the game here. Cassiopeia needs time to scale up. But if you look at the items, I mean, the Karthus has a full item up over her. More than that, actually, as we just see a Blasting Wand get purchased. The Rylai's Crystal Scepter has been proving incredibly valuable. All of this health that Karthus has been building means that he doesn't do as much damage as he potentially could, but he doesn't really need to. Because we've got Laverne's belting out damage, dashing around during these skirmishes. All he needs to do is be very, very difficult to kill and also constantly provide at least some threat, which is what he's been doing, and doing very well. I very much like Dionysus' choice of build path here. Going with the incredibly sticky and annoying Karthus, rather than one which would be able to two-shot people, but could also get two-shot himself by a well-placed Cassiopeia ult. It just kind of makes it all the harder for Blue Team to come back into this one. They're going to be going for this dragon here. Blue is looking for the fight, though. Impact flashing in with the Righteous Glory onto Lord Beta. A bit of an unusual target choice, and it might not pay off for Blue Team. The exhaust has been dropped onto Impact. The backline is being wrecked by this Zac. He is not caring at all about the damage. Lord Beta flashing forward. Cassiopeia ult again onto only one person. Reasonable is going to be going down. The depth charge lands, and Triste will fall soon after. Triple kill for Laverne's. This is looking grim, people. Or I suppose, if you want to look at it from Red Team's point of view, this is looking rosy. This is perfect. Everything falling just as they want it. Well, not quite everything. There have been a few glitches up in the top lane. But Impact just hasn't been able to make use of that gold that he got. Insteadly, Zac has actually climbed ahead of him in terms of CS. Let's see if... And in terms of total gold, actually. Probably due to the global gold advantage that Red Team has. So that advantage is just completely evened out now. As Reasonable is coming in onto Dionysus. A good amount of damage back on from Dionysus. He's going very, very low, but he's probably going to at least be able to trade 1-for-1. Dodges out one Skittle. The Defile is still burning onto him. Can Reasonable escape here? I do not think so. And now Impact might be in some trouble. As Little did come up. However, the Lantern's there, and he pulls him to safety. But that kill cost them so much. Dan and Beta are down in the bottom lane. The second Righteous Glory charging on into Triest. This is a very, very tanky Nautilus. Does get stunned up under the tower. It seems like Beta is just a magnet for those Petrifies. Triest actually still alive. No, Godlike gets the kill, but they spend a lot for this. The tower shot lands. Can Pudding close the distance. He'll have the E up in just a few moments. Dash forward. And that's all he needed. Picks up some shutdown gold for himself. That'll go a long way towards completing the Trinity Force. Which will go a long way towards bringing Blue back into this game if they have a way back in. How many stacks are on that Manamune? 615 out of 750, so that power spike is going to be there soon as well. If Blue Team ever wants to fight, it's going to be within the next few minutes or so, most likely. Depending on when the Triforce can be completed, which will be very, very soon. He has all 3 parts, and I think the completion cost is like 7 gold or something stupid. Yeah, there it is. Just sitting around in base for that. As Reasonable heads over to the Krugs camp, does get spotted out by a ward, and this ward coverage from Red Team has been very, very thorough. Speaking of ward coverage, they're setting up for a Baron. Getting some pinks there, the Crab buff as well. Crab is probably the most valuable thing you can have when going for one of those objectives. Just because of the uncontestable nature of that vision. Here comes Lavernes over the wall, and the speed buff is not something to be trifled with either. Especially on a Karthus. Anything that gives Karthus a little bit more mobility is incredibly nice to have. It covers up one of his main weaknesses. Oh, Hook not quite landing on the Pudding. He does have a red buff, which will be quite useful moving into this fight, but Impact's perhaps a little bit out of position here. Gonna get knocked up. He's very tanky. His hook lands onto Lavernes. Reasonable going to be following that up as well. Can Pudding put out the damage right now? He's just peeling back away from the Karthus ult, away from this Zac. He's trying his best just to stabilize during this fight as Triest comes over the wall, but again, the Cassiopeia ult doesn't land onto anybody. Zac goes down into his passive, Hook's life and Impact. Now both incredibly low. Dan is going to be able to pick up an easy double kill here. But we've seen 2 kills go over to Blue Team as well. Triest still high on health, and Ezreal did go down in the end, but maybe Triest will be able to kite back here. Dionysus chasing after him as Reasonable turns his attention onto Little. The Q lands! Dan is going to be following that one up. No question about that. Artex, no way out of this one. A few more auto attacks later, and Dan is on a killing spree. 10, 1, and 11 Lee Sin play. That looked hopeful for Blue Team, but Pudding had to spend so much of that fight just running away. Too much guaranteed damage from Red. The Karthus ult took away a third of his health. And then Zac just being near him provided enough threat that he couldn't stay and fight. He couldn't put out the consistent DPS that he needed to be able to make that a victory for Blue. They had a really nice catch from Lavernes at the beginning. The hook landed, Reasonable followed it up, but there was no damage to follow through because of an unfortunate misplaced Cassiopeia ult, and because Pudding just has too much pressure on him at this point. Impact going in onto Little. He doesn't have his passive. It was burned last time. Hook's life is here for a bit of CC as well. Hook flies out. Doesn't quite connect, but I think they'll still be able to take down this kill. He's eaten a lot. Taking a lot of punishment here. Does have the Let's Bounce up, and Aaron Pudding is there to finish off the deal. Lavernes doesn't make it over the wall with the dash. Aaron Pudding providing some good damage as well. There's the ulti onto him from the Nautilus, but nobody's there to follow it up. Blue Team finally looking like they have a good fight. The flash doesn't go over the wall from Beta. He's going to go down. Dan, now the target. Pudding takes the lantern, and this Baron buff is so conveniently placed, there's no reason for them not to go for it. It would take a miraculous play by Dionysus to stop this one. It's already getting burnt way down. And that time, Pudding wasn't under fire. Red team was too low on health. They had too few members. They had to back off. They failed all of their gap closers over that wall. If the dash or the flash had made it over, that would have turned out so very differently. But Pudding didn't have to spend the whole fight peeling back, so he was able to put out damage. Not only that, but he has the Manamune transformation now. And that consistent Ezreal damage allowed them to turn that around, along with a few misplays from Red Team. Who are starting to let this game slip, but it's not quite out of their grasp yet. The Baron buff is unfortunate, but they have a Karthus, which means intense amounts of wave clear, even against Baron buff minions. Dragon is going to be up in 5 seconds. They are rushing for that. They're going to take this crap as well. Beta in the pit with the pink guy. We'll be able to sweep out that force. And this thing is already getting started off. The card that's nearby, it does not have very long to live. And that's going to go down. 3 dragon buffs for red. They have not given one of those over to blue yet. And that movement speed buff, as I said, going to be incredibly valuable for Dionysus especially. Anything that helps a Karthus get around is really, really valuable. Shoring up his weaknesses. I would like to take a moment to look at some of the item builds specifically between these 80 carries. Laverne is going for a bit more of a tank shredding build. Though I suppose the blade is a tank shredding item as well, but specifically an armor shredding build. Which I find a little bit curious. There's not a ton of armor on the other side. There's magic resist, magic resist. There's a little bit of armor with the Warden's Mail, but not a huge armor item anywhere really to be seen. There's one in the works, but nothing quite completed. I think the Blade of the Ruined King might actually have been more useful for him there. The lifesteal would have been really nice. Even a Bloodthirster could get pick up. I'm just a little bit surprised at the Last Whisper at this point in the game. Hook flies out, does land on a dam. Pretty good target, but not when he's into the tower. And actually not really anymore either. He's gotten pretty tanky. Anduin's Omen and a Banshee's Veil. Difficult target to take down. Hook flies out, not to hit Beta. These fights are going to be live or die by the hooks here. On both sides. Whether or not Beta can hit Pudding or Hook's life can hit Laverne's. Because I still think Artex needs a bit more time to scale up. Pudding right now is in a power spike. He's got the Trinity Force, he's got the Manamune. Transform. Muramana, I should say. And with that Baron buff running, they might be able to take a fight here, but they do have Rek'Sai split pushing and Maokai down in bottom lane, so most likely not going to go for that. Good decision to back off. Reasonable going to get some damage on the top lane, but nothing too heavy. As Dionysus with his Karthus levels of wave clear shows up, and here comes the Rek'Sai ult to the bottom side of the map. Little an impact in one of the wimpiest fights I've ever seen. Reasonable going to come in and bring in a bit more heavy firepower, knocking that Zac up into the air. Actually saved it. Wanted to wait for the stretching strike, but Little saved his escape until after Reasonable had used the gap closer and the CC. So he gets out of there clean. This bottom lane turret might not be getting out alive, though. Here comes the engage, Righteous Glory. There's the ulti onto Artex. Here's the Karthus ult. It's going to be quite impactful. Aaron Pudding getting chunked away by a quarter of his health, but there's no follow-up. They don't have the Lucian belting out the damage. He was late to the fight, and Dionysus is getting engaged on the backside. Artex is on a killing spree. Lucian finally goes down to Reasonable. And Laverne's wasn't there for that. At least for the most of it. This Zac probably going to go down in the end. There's the passive popped, but Reasonable can tank this turret for a while. If not, Hook's life will be there. Ace for Pudding. Ace for blue team. Artex, don't take that tower. Let the minions do it. I said it was a long shot. I said it was a long shot so many times, but it looks like blue team, with a series of well-played team fights, and really, honestly, a series of mistakes from red, might be able to make it back into this game. Also, a series of good timing to back off. I need a better way of phrasing that. They've been playing cautiously. They haven't been committing to taking turrets that maybe they could have taken. That inhibitor turret possibility, maybe. It would have been really risky. The top lane turret with reasonable, he could have gone harder for that. The mid lane play, when they had the Baron buff, they could have pushed harder for that, but no. They're just taking the safe plays, they're letting Red make mistakes, and then they're taking advantage of them, rather than trying to make some kind of play themselves. Baron isn't quite up yet. Pudding just checking that with his ulti, but he's a little bit early on that. Minute 40 seconds. Verne's taking the red buff, as red team does still have a gold lead, but it's not going to be too much of one at this point. 2,000 or so, but that doesn't really mean too much. 30 minutes into the game when 3 major items are completed on most of the champs here. Even the supports. Lord Beta's already picked up an Elixir of Iron. That's an interesting one. Looking for some tenacity for himself. Make those engages a bit easier. Here comes the stretching strike, but little is not going to be landing. Lord Beta takes some good damage from Artex, but he lands a hook. There's the ulti as well. The damage is here this time from the Lucian. The culling lands all of its bullets right on the mark. Reasonable turns around and gets the kill on the little as Dan. He's not a damage source anymore. He's trying to play this one solo, but he's a tank now. He's an engage for his team. He's backup. He's not a damage dealer. The hook flies out. Dionysus and Laverne's both avoid it, thankfully. But once again, Laverne's was there for the beginning of the fight, but he didn't follow up. Dionysus wasn't able to do all the damage himself. Top lane second turret goes down. Baron is being pinged, and that is the safer play here. Blue team has been consistently going for the safer play, so I wouldn't be surprised to see them do that. Dionysus flying out of the base. Both damage dealers are still up from red team, so looking for a push could be potentially dangerous. So they are going to turn their sights on to Baron. It is live, and it's already getting taken out. Reasonable is there, but he doesn't have any backup. Actually, might be some communication strife inside of blue team. Four members of blue team are here. Cassiopeia is waiting in the wings. Ezreal was just looking off to try and check that dragon, see if it was potentially something they could do, but red team rushed it way too quickly. They're just going to be trading these objectives here. They know full well that blue team will be taking down the giant purple lizard. They figure they'll at least get a lizard of their own. As everything returns to quiet on Summoner's Rift. This is getting pretty intense here. I might have underestimated the teamfight potential of a well-placed Cassiopeia ult. Because as I said a few times, Karthus was most likely going to be more impactful come late game than Cassiopeia. But as a combination of the tankier build, which really I'm sorry, I live next to a train station. I hope that's not too audible. But as a combination of the early tankiness build, which really paid off in the mid-game, but isn't quite so hard paying off now, and the fact that Cassiopeia has CC, like just the straight up fact that Cassiopeia is always going to be somewhat valuable if a well-placed ult happens, I think they're actually evening out now that we're reaching into the later game here. Not to say Karthus doesn't also technically have CC, he does have a slow in the Wall of Pain, but I would say a 5-man stun is more valuable than a 5-man slow. If it comes to that. The engage perhaps from Zac here, Slingshot is up. Ooh, the hook lands onto Dan. Again, not quite the target they want. Very mobile and fairly tanky. Another hook onto Dan. Looks like really likes hitting that Lee Sin. And they're just laying on the pressure here. Red team needs to go for an engage when they're under the tower, preferably, or if they can just land some good solid CC on the Pudding. They've been focusing Trist a little bit, as we have... Oh, there's the ulti. Just a bit more damage onto Dan still. We have seen Beta go with the ult on to Tristan. Pudding is godlike. Karthus immediately bursted down. He's still going to be able to have some impact on this fight. The ulti is going to come out, and the damage from the tower is there onto a few members of blue team. Impact does take down Dan, but he goes down himself in the end. Laverne's Kange, can he stay alive and can he belt out the damage? I don't really think so. Reasonable and Hooks are going to be going under the tower, which falls to pieces. Double kill for Pudding. Red team's inhibitor is going to be falling. I don't have too much to say because I really didn't expect to be seeing this scenario this game. Hook flies out, doesn't quite land. Reasonable flashing forward for the Unburrow, actually. They really want this kill into Laverne's, but maybe they should just go for the turrets here. Still not quite in the bag yet. Here comes Dionysus rushing out of the base. Gets hit up by Pudding, though. Breaks the home guard. Laverne's dashes away from a Q. Pudding going to be chasing after him. Those chunking auto attacks from the Muramana. Aaron Pudding now caught by the hook. Dionysus will be surely taking him down. Oh, he shifts away. Can he stall this one out for much longer? Wall of Pain lands. The damage is there, though. And Karthus will get the shutdown. But good lord, the cost. 2 inhibitors down. Actually, no, that one's up. That one in the mid lane is up. So 1 inhibitor down, 1 inhibitor open. And the Nexus lying broken and shattered, almost in pieces. Both of its defending turrets fallen under the onslaught from blue team. Dionysus will at least be able to salvage a blue buff. It'll be valuable on Karthus, but it's a long way further back into the game for red team, who looked so solid earlier on, but have just been giving up advantage after advantage and dropping team fights like grains of sand through their fingers. Impact laying on the pressure in top lane. This has been a really solidly played Maokai throughout this game. The laning phase was good. A little bit of help from the jungler there as well. Ooh. Actually, Triss now getting pulled in onto Laverne's. If they can make this kill count, then they can just win the game off of this one. Hook flies out, doesn't quite hit Dionysus, but they still got the kill into one damage dealer in the stun. Onto the other one, double kill for Triest. Little trying to salvage something from this as the Karthus ult does come out. But blue team has this one in the bag, surely, at this point. Not worth chasing after Beta. The hook actually flies. Triest goes down. Dan coming in to finish that one off. Reasonable is here for the double on Burrow. Knocks both Dan and Beta up. Pudding is on his way. But until that time, there is not going to be any damage going down here. There, finally, Pudding is in the show and somebody dies. Beta looking to buy some time. The hook landed as he tried to fly away to a wall. The surrender comes out. Red team gives up the ghost. Or maybe Pudding took down the Nexus. I'm not entirely sure. But one way or the other, that is the victory. Blue team did quite well coming back in that one. Thank you guys for watching. My name is Octavian. I'll see you all next time.